welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Gemini, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of November 2024. I hope you are well. I'm using the Night Sun Tarot for you today. Before we begin, first let me extend my abject apologies for this being so late into the month. I had some unfortunate house-related things. I needed an emergency rewire on my entire house, and that kind of knocked me back a week. And I think I got so stressed out about it that I then got ill. So maybe there's a lesson learned there for me in terms of managing my stress levels. Anywho, I appreciate you. Thank you for your patience. It is noted. Yeah. So, other things to tell you. If the reading resonates and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is via the first link in the description box below this video here. And the second link in said description box is to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost beyond the membership fee, and hang out with an extraordinary group of people. They really are quite something. So if that sounds like it might be of interest to you, you know what to do with that link. Now let's flip you around, as it were, Gemini, and have a look and see what's going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Gemini, please? Wow, okay, so we have the 10 of Swords and the 3 of Wands. They did not come out upright, so I kind of want to honour that. Neither did they come out reversed or even really properly sideways, but they're kind of skew with, and this is important. Everything that happens here at the table for me is part of what is going on in the reading, so we honour that. Tell me about current energy, please. For Gemini, we have the Hermit reversed, Virgo energy, and what's coming towards Gemini for November? We have the 6 of Pentacles. I like this very much, because we have a kind of instability suggested over here. We have a process of kind of working things out, leading to a balance, to an equilibrium. Now, the funny thing is because this is reversed, it's not about soul seeking, or soul searching rather. It's not about going within and kind of thrashing around to see what happened there. Actually, it's suggesting that now it's about kind of coming out of the darkness with, whatever actually it was that you worked out over here. It has not seemed to need this deep introspection. It actually suggests that it's something to come out with, you know. So we have the 4 of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck here. So we're talking about roots, we're talking about foundations, we're talking about things that are being held on perhaps a little bit too tightly to you, by you at this point. But also the things that are so important that they should be held on to, right? Remember that every card in the tarot has this more, this light expression, and it has also possibly a I struggle with the idea of negative, because I don't think any life experience truly is 100% pure black negative, like awfulness. Particularly not if we are to take from it something that improves us later down the line, whether it improves us as people or whether it improves our ability to be able to interact with the world or whatever, right? I'm a true believer in the power of the mistake, and I want to leave that right there like that, right? So when we come to this 4 of Pentacles, which generally speaking represents, we're often given to understand it's a miserly energy, right, where we kind of clamp down on something, we don't want to release it, we don't want to let it go. Sometimes there's a very good reason why we don't need to do that, and it can be as spiritual as the process of release. But we're finding a way to balance all of these things out. And I do think, you know, the natural duality of Gemini is that constant battle between, you know, the sides of ourselves, for you at least anyway, you know, within yourself, and then the world outside as well. There's this ever shifting balance that needs to be achieved. So let's get some clarifiers out on the table. Tell me about this 10 of Swords, 3 of Wands. Wow. That was quite the eruption of cards. So we have the Tower. Let's try and pull them out in the order that they came out. The 4 of Swords on its side. We've got the Star card, the Five of Wands, the Devil, and the Queen of Wands. Now, I would not normally take this many cards, but they do seem to have something that they want to say. And I think because of what's going on here is so odd, right? We're definitely not dealing in definite states with these cards here. I think it's important to understand what's gone on underneath, so that we can learn from it and we can move forwards. Tell me about this Hermit in reverse, Five of Swords in reverse. What does Gemini need to know about this Hermit reversed? The Hanged Man reversed as well. Interesting. Okay. Tell me about the Six of Pentacles, please. Two of Pentacles, another card that is speaking to the same thing. Oh, goodness. King of Cups, Queen of Swords, Ten of Wands. Now, let's honour the wonkiness that is going on here. Gemini, you feel like you're being pulled in 15 different directions, inside and out. And it doesn't feel terribly comfortable. We have an upright moon at the bottom of the deck. And this actually is a card that's been coming out for a lot of signs. I had attributed it initially to the signs that seem to be sitting in the dark side of the year, but then you don't. Right, you are one of the signs that deals with the transition from, you know, a state of dark to a state of light, and so on and so forth. So it seems like it's happening more or less across the board, but certainly the later signs that I have read for this time around all seem to be having this very strong sense of the moon. So I don't know if this gap between the readings coming out was actually something that was supposed to come out, because there's, you know, a group of signs who are all having a particular flavour of experience right now that does not seem to be able to be categorised by the light half of the year and the dark half of the year, or air signs. There's a fucking cat. Air signs versus fire signs, or something like that, right? It seems to be a little bit more. It seems to me to be more random than that, but as we know, there's probably nothing that's truly random in the universe, so there will be an underlying point of connection somewhere between all of these. Anywho, the moon is creating a distortion, because this is what it does. You know, anything that happens under the light of the moon essentially is almost illusory, in so much as, I've said this a few times in the last week, right? You know, under the light of the moon, we can perceive the vast silhouettes of mountains, of challenges, of, you know, all sorts of things. What we cannot see is the detail. That is obscured by the darkness. We can pick things out, but we don't necessarily see where the edges of those things are. We don't necessarily have a sense of how close to us or how far away it is. It distorts our perceptions. Now, the moon for me is also about the workings of the subconscious. And so what we can see here is what is going on, I think, for you. This duality, this balance that is, that you're kind of fighting for at this point, is what's going on within and what's going on without. What's going on within your subconscious versus what is going on within your conscious mind. And I feel like there is an awareness that these have been pulling in different directions. And so the confusion and the illusion is why, and how can we kind of unpick this? How can we bring some level of illumination to proceedings? So we start over here with this Ten of Swords and the Three of Wands. Now, the Ten of Swords generally indicates an ending of some sort, and it's one of those endings that seems negative in the moment, but actually leads to a sense of relief when whatever it's indicating ends. Now, because it's swords, we can be talking about things of the mind, right? It's a Gemini card right there. It is actually Sun in Gemini. And so maybe we do have some sense of the illumination that we're looking for. I just think that because it's minor arcana, it's not really powerful enough to disrupt the energy of the major arcana moon, right? So we've got some insight, but we've got a lot of distortion over here. Now, the Ten of Swords could represent an end to a particular way of thinking, right? It can be that very confrontational state of realizing that maybe we've been projecting, or maybe that we have willfully misunderstood a situation because it serves our ego to do so, right? Or we have a particular view of the world, we have a particular view of ourselves in it, and sometimes confrontational information that would suggest that we're not perhaps going the right way with something will be disregarded, because on some level our ego is identifying with this more strongly than is healthy for us to do so. So when the Ten of Swords comes along, right, it's that process, it's that period rather of realization. Now, in a lot of cases, this can leave people feeling humiliated and betrayed and left for dead, you know, all the sorts of things that we talk about in terms of the Ten of Swords, because it is an uncomfortable card. It represents the peak experience generally of our cycle through the Suit of Swords. But whereas in the case of the Ten of Pentacles and the Ten of Cups, like, what we've got is a sense of completion and culmination that we do not want to end, and that's where the sting and the tail comes with those two cards that people think are really positive and actually sometimes are kind of not. We have the Ten of Swords saying, well, this is a period of peak discomfort. We really fucking don't like this. This is confrontational on all sorts of levels. But as that energy clicks over into the Ace of Swords, as inevitably it must, because we go through cycles within cycles within cycles, that discomfort is replaced by an illumination, right? A new understanding, new perceptions of the world, right? Everything runs through our brains, and our brains are particularly biased to select for certain information, right? And a lot of that will come from childhood trauma, a lot of that will come from, you know, previous life experiences and whatnot. But once we become aware of how it is selecting for particular information, right, particularly if this is, you know, stuff of the nature of confirmation bias, you know, we're looking for, we see only what we're looking for, and we choose not to see the rest of it. Choose makes it sound pretty conscious. Generally, this is a subconscious action, right? So some element of our mind is choosing it, but consciously we are not. And you know, this is what I was saying about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind kind of pulling in opposite directions here. I think what you've been looking for is a state of truth, Gemini. And I think the harder you're looking for it, the more foggy the scene is becoming, right? Remember the distortion of the moon. Remember the distortion that it's going to cast over whatever it's, you know, at this point, because it's the shadow card, it's literally touching everything that's going on here, right? So subconscious values, like what we stand for, what we believe, you know, those things that represent our core values, anything that we think contradicts that, we're going to not see, right? We're going to self-select only the information that agrees with this. But if you're conscious and if your conscious core values, if your conscious foundations are actually sideways from what your subconscious foundations are, your subconscious core beliefs, your subconscious core values, then there's going to end up being a schism. And I think that's what you've been navigating recently, this schism between how far, possibly at its worst expression, a traumatized mindset has created a particular way of being, a particular way of conducting oneself, a particular set of behaviors, you know. I would be more comfortable for you on your behalf if these cards are turned up like this, because there would be a very clear seeing, there'd be a very clear understanding of how this has led to this. But instead we get these on the side and we get the moon over here. So these energies are not expressing properly. This energy is distorting it, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to try and work out what the actual truth is. Now, I do not think that you are alone in that, Gemini, because like I said, I've seen a lot of signs who are also fielding the moon at the moment. But you only have to look around in what's going on in the world at the moment to see that this is a pretty prevalent condition. Now, the Tower, the Four of Swords on its side, the Star, the Five of Wands, the Devil, the Queen of Wands. Somebody else got the Five of Wands and the Devil. Who is that? It was a different sign. can't remember if it was Sagittarius or Aquarius. It was one of the two anyway. And this is an unpleasant set of cards. I mean, we're talking about the toxicity of the devil, and then we're talking about physical interactions. And sometimes that combination there can represent domestic abuse. And as I said exactly to the other sign that this came up for, I do not think that it's a prevalent energy that's rippling through your sign at the moment. But if you are in a domestically violent situation, please get yourself out. You deserve so much more than that. But we could also be seeing how this would be potentially related to war, right? We can always scale these energies up and down. Now, to scale the energy right down, right, to where nobody is being hurt and nobody's in a violent situation, what we have is a state of internal violence going on, Gemini. And I think this is really important for you to understand, because the Five of Wands is about conflict. It's an inherent instability. Now, whether that instability is between your words and your actions, or whether it's two different roads that you want to travel, whether it's what the conscious mind wants to do and what the subconscious mind wants to do, what this Five of Wands is saying is that somehow these are incompatible. Now, whether it's because you haven't thought this through, or whether it's because you quite simply have not seen it, because your mind has been selecting for the information that it wants rather than the information that is, this devil is kind of intensifying. And I think to a degree, actually, because the Tower is here, and the Star, which is the masculine and feminine, like they follow on one from the other. We have the destruction of the Tower, and then the renewed hope and the very feminine energy of the Star, kind of bringing healing to things. It's showing you where you have been stuck, particularly mentally. Like, if you've been stuck mentally, everything that flows from that mental position is going to reflect that, right? So your actions will reflect that, your emotions will reflect that. Like, for some of you, what it's done is underscored some level of toxicity that you did not realize existed within this duality that you're trying to balance out, right? And it's a really important part of our personal work, is that we really recognize where that shows up. I mean, this is what shadow work is all about, right? Now, I don't think that this is intentional shadow work. I feel like for most of you, there's been something that's come up to the surface, some sort of reaction to a situation that you have experienced that's shown you that you haven't necessarily been thinking about things in the right way. You still can't quite work out how we got to where we are, but something kind of went awry somewhere, right? Distortion, core values, core principles. What do I stand for? What do I believe? Are all of the things that I believe actually in alignment with each other, or do some of them contradict each other? Because your subconscious will recognize that. Your conscious mind may not, but your subconscious will certainly recognize that. And so there's a question here of where perhaps you've been fueled by idealism rather than reality. Because you could see that axis of idealism versus reality playing out here between the Star and the Devil, right? And the conflict in the middle. This is how I want the world to be, whether it's the world or my personal world, or whatever, for right across the board, versus what does it actually look like? Five of Wands says that hasn't been jiving, not quite as well as it could have done. Now, we see, a degree of disquiet here with the Four of Swords. So the Four of Swords is a card of healing. It follows on from the Three. And so Three of Swords is the intersection of truth and reality versus our emotions, right? And the pain that can often cause. Then the Four of Swords, which represents a step back, a break, right? Some objectivity being introduced into the situation, and drawing back from it while we allow ourselves time to heal. I feel like the reason why it's on its side here is because we still can't see quite the edges of how all of this has happened. Any Swords card is representing the introduction of not just objectivity and rationality, but information. Now, maybe the situation is actually that there's simply been too much information, and not all of it has made sense. Not all of it has complemented each other. Jupiter is in your sign at the moment, and I think that everybody's finding it very overwhelming to process all of this. Now, like I said, this could be on a grand world scale, but this could be a situation that you're in your job, right, where you maybe listened to somebody who had an opinion on something, but they represented it as fact rather than opinion, and it caused you to perceive your situation a particular way. You could see it in relationships, between your friendship groups. You know, you've got to take it as it applies to you. But this Tower card is the realization that there's something here on the level of core values, on the level of how you think, and then by extension how you behave, is falling over. And maybe maybe at this point it was still in the process of falling over. Like, what does it mean? How can we make sense of it? And then we've got the Queen of Wands down here. Now, the Queen of Wands makes sense of our actions. For me, all the queens make sense of the suit that they represent. So the Queen of Cups is making sense of how we feel about things. The Queen of Swords is looking for truth, and she's making sense of what we think about things. Here, the Queen of Wands, it's actions. Why do I do that? Why do I want to do that? Like, what is driving me to do that, right? Anything that is kind of action oriented, which would be your expression of you out into the world, right? Every time you ambulate your meat sack around and have some sort of interaction with the world or other people, the Queen of Wands is generally, if you're in a reflective state, involved in there somewhere. So we've got all of this going on, right, bringing you down to the Queen of Wands, which feels like this state of questioning, like, what the fuck? Like, I don't really know why I did this, why I wanted to do this, why I didn't want to do that. You know, we're trying to look for motivations that are below the surface. Cat. I'm going to pause the video here because I need to evict the cat because she's drenched and she is now on my bed. Stay there. Okay, I'm back. Cat has been evicted. Now, this is an extremely, I think, this is an extremely helpful place for you to be, or to have been, because whether it is that you're looking to confront the darker part of yourself, or whether you're simply trying to understand a little better, whether you're trying to bring some sort of internal balance in a world that seems to be pretty chaotic right now, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you are understanding what you did, what you do, what you will do, and everything that goes into that, right? Why you feel the drive, why you feel the want, why you feel the desire. These are all things that are very much wandsy in nature. And this level of introspection, I think, is really helpful for you. Now, what's quite interesting is that we move then into your current energy, and we have the Hermit in reverse. We have the Five of Swords in the reverse too, which is amazing. And we have the Hanged Man in reverse. Now, I'm not sure if this isn't somewhat of a cautionary note for you, Gemini, because we have the two cards, well, maybe it's two or three, that speak specifically to introspection, right? But with this one, there is no... We're looking to get into a state of non-resistance, right? We're looking at the world from a different perspective when we're hanging upside down, right? And it is something that is uncomfortable, but nevertheless that we are surrendering to, right? But within that, there is the idea that there is no movement. It's a highly passive energy to be in. And then we have the Hermit, which is not necessarily a passive card, because we can be very actively looking for information inside of us when this shows up. But on the outside, right, to an external observer, it may look like we were perhaps withdrawing or whatever. Now, when that shows up in the reverse, what we have here, and this is why I feel like it's a bit of a cautionary note, in addition to the Hanged Man, is don't stew on this, Gemini. It's really, really important that you don't stew on this, because in both of these cards, the message of these is you've done enough introspection, like come out from wherever you are. When the Hermit shows up in reverse. It's saying come out of the cave, right? You've had a look around, you've seen what is in there, and to all intents and purposes, for what you need, you have gathered the information that is appropriate. And a similar sort of thing here with the Hanged Man, you know, when he shows up in the reverse, it's like, it's time to get down off the tree. How long are you going to leave yourself there? I mean, in both cases, I feel like there's a bit of self-flagellation going on here, Gemini, and I'm not entirely sure why. I can understand if you feel like you've made a mistake with something, why this would bother you. But generally speaking, you know, being on the axis of Gemini and Sagittarius as you are, right, there's a great deal of movement generally where Gemini is concerned. And it feels to me like there's something that's kind of shocked you into either stasis or shocked you into maybe it's even just closing your mouth and not issuing opinions on what you think about anything. And maybe there would be a time and a place for that to be correct, that to be the right action here. But like I said, there's a self-flagellation that seems to be that I can see reflected in these cards here, that's saying, well, I need to shut up, I need to not have an opinion, I need to really soul search. And actually the cards are saying you don't need to do that at all. Actually, you need to come out, you need to get down, and you need to recognize what has shifted in your mental processes. Now, this Five of Swords, which I have not really spoken to up until this point, is very, very important. When the Five of Swords shows up in the upright, it is, as all the fives are, representing some level of instability. Instability of emotion when we have the Five of Cups, you know, instability of action when we have that, or, you know, unstable situations, perhaps with you know, a number of unstable people there. You know, the five itself is what represents the change, the instability, and the instability is important for things to adjust, right? So when these cards numbered 5 show up reversed, that is a stabilization of something that has been inherently unstable. Now, whether it's thought patterns, whether it's what you said, how you said it, who you said it to, all of these things are saying, all of these cards here are saying to me, like, you kind of ironed it out as much as you need to. Now, if this does revolve around some aspect of having made a mistake, then this is really valuable. But it's saying, like, don't lock yourself away, Gemini. You need to still be out here, right, for whatever reason. Now, maybe, possibly, it is for you to communicate what you have worked out for yourself in the recent past. And I mean, when I talk about recent past, I'm talking about anything probably up to about 6 weeks back from now, but it could be this morning when you got out of bed, right? All it means is it's not this moment right now as you're listening to this. In this moment now, as you are listening to this, any kind of self-flagellation, anything that is a withdrawal because of shame or guilt or the sense of having made a mistake or misunderstood something or whatever, right? You need to come back out immediately. Because just as this represents, you know, it can represent division and strife and verbal quarrelling and things like that, but it's ultimately a card of self-sabotage. That's what we're talking about here. We don't want you to sabotage yourself, Gemini. We need you to come forward with what you actually think, and particularly if you have learned something about yourself in the recent past, very recent past. It's almost like this needs now to be something that you lead with. Well, you notice in both of these cards we have illumination. There's the illumination of the lamp, and I want to point out to you, if some of you didn't know this, that the star is actually generally situated in the Hermit's lamp. If you go through the Waite-Smith, you will see there is a star in here, right? So we're using the star to guide ourselves. There's illumination. In the case of the Hanged Man, the illumination is around the head. Now, this is an emotional card. This is Pisces card. But the illumination is happening around the head, it's not happening around the heart. And I think part of the wisdom of the Hanged Man is to recognize where one's emotions have given us a framework that we have perhaps shoehorned information into. Because the illumination, like I said, is around the head. This is what needed the change of perspective. Your emotions are strong and that's fine, but it's the change of perspective that was needed. And as one achieves that, so you can go forth. You know, when we're talking about the luminaries, the sun and the moon, right? These are external objects often that are kind of highlighting something or creating an illusion over something. But we also contain this within us, right? Because literally we are the cosmos, right? This is a thing, microcosm, macrocosm, so whatever's out there is in here too. This is saying like there's a kind of internal guiding light, there's an internal guidance system that actually you should allow yourself to trust, provided you have the opportunity to check in on yourself periodically. No, I'm sorry, Kat, you can't come in. And essentially what's happened here is you've checked yourself and you've realised that you were... something here is different though, that's the thing, right? It's not, God, I was so wrong and everything is so awful. It's kind of like, what is the lens that I am running all of the information through? Now, for me, that's the mind. Like, the mind is the filtration system. And before we are consciously aware of it, the mind has sifted things into stuff that is important and stuff that is not, stuff that confirms our position and stuff that doesn't. And before it hits the conscious mind, like, we actually have no idea of the breadth of information that comes in because the brain will select that. Somewhere here, something's been shown to you that you didn't see. Like maybe your filtration system has just kind of, you know, filtered it out, but now you see it. And there's a modification here that I don't think that you could have made, you could have applied any other way. But I'll get back to the important point, which is stop self-flagellating. Come out from where you are, right? Don't allow this... I'm getting a lot of feelings of... bit of guilt, bit of shame, bit of grief, bit of something, a lot more in the way of emotion than hard facts and logic. And maybe it's even a touch of disappointment. Like, whatever it is, come out. Like, just come out. You don't need to worry about this anymore. You know, Gemini should know better than anyone. Like, stuff's only interesting till the next interesting thing comes out and we're being battered with information generally. I think you're taking this much harder than anybody else that you've had anything to do with. That's really interesting. So anyway, when we move into the rest of November, what we've got is the Six of Pentacles, and I like this very much because it is Moon in Taurus, and so it does therefore represent to me in some way grounded emotions, right? Emotions that are kind of tethered a little bit more to both reality, but also much, much closer to what your core values and your core principles are, whatever they are, and they might have got a bit foggy over the recent past. Then... you know, balance and equilibrium, but within your remit to action these. Remember, when the major arcana comes out, this is kind of big universal energy that is happening at you, and the minor arcana energy could well be characterized as your response to that. So we have many cards that deal with themes of balance in the major arcana, but this one is a minor arcana one, as is this one here, and it's saying the ball is now in your court to decide what it is that you do from here. And I've been saying the same message to other signs as well. I understand that you create your reality, right? You choose what you experience. And that can be something that people take the wrong way a long time. Oh, I see, so I'm making this horrible life for myself and all that kind of thing. And a Christian people are like, no, like, how are you a match for it, right? Because that's what this is. You're matching an experience somewhere. So the rest of November for you is about kind of finding a way to balance out that duality that you have witnessed now firsthand in yourself. I feel like it came as a massive surprise. Don't think that you saw it coming. But rather than falling into a grief cycle or a shame cycle or something like that, or even just a disappointment cycle with yourself, it's like, acknowledge this for what it is, which is a lesson that you have been gifted by the universe, that then allows you to modify consciously both what you think, how you feel, and then by extension how you act and what you put out there into the world, right? It's a bit of kind of to and froing with yourself over the course of November. But I do feel with this King of Cups and Queen of Swords, you are in a considerably stronger position than you were just a few short weeks ago, because your emotions have actually become more grounded, more centered, and matured, right? This is when the King of Cups shows up, it's always about a maturation. So we have more of an ease in your ability to be able to express compassion and forgiveness and all that kind of thing. Oh, Gemini, like, have you forgotten the first rule? Right? The first rule is, whatever you are trying to be for everyone out in the world, right? So whether you're trying to be a healer, or whether you're trying to be a guide, or whether you're trying to be somebody who speaks sense, you've always got to be compassionate with these people when you deal with them, empathy with these people when you're dealing with them. Great thing. Are you extending it to yourself? I think you forgot the first rule, Gemini, and I think this is why the cards are saying, God, for the love of God, please get out of the cave. Please get down from the tree, right? I wanted to quote the Big Lebowski there, but members will save that sort of thing for the extended, right? We've got a far more stable emotional mindset, or a far more stable emotional set, if you will, and a far more stable mindset that is better positioning you to understand the truth of things rather than what you thought they were, right? So it's not that your filtration system has been eliminated, because that never happens for anyone, right? Cognitive biases are real in everyone. But what we have is something that's taking you a little bit closer to the truth, right? So your filtration system has been improved, and instead of blocking, I don't know, just everything but what you wanted to hear, maybe what is dripping in now is other stuff that you didn't want to hear, but is closer to the truth than where you were before, right? And this King of Cups says you can handle this now. Although there is a bit of to and froing over the course of November, finding where that helps you sit within yourself and what it means for this moving forwards. I do think that there is somewhat an ease that is coming here. Now, that's just quite interesting, because your ruling planet, Mercury, is going into retrograde. Is it the 25th of November? I think it might be. It's going into retrograde on the 25th of November. So this is a point in time where we're going to go back over what we thought we knew. We're going to go back over to double check, cross the T's, dot the I's, and make sure that everything that we've planned, that we think, all those kind of things, that they make sense, they're logical. And if something needs a do-over, then that will be fine. And I don't think that this situation that I'm seeing here actually is speaking to the Mercury retrograde. I think that's going to happen on top of what you have already seen here. Because remember, during a Mercury retrograde, it is quite possible for people to be talking at crossed purposes, right? It's possible for information to be misunderstood, and, information going from one head and entering another. There are a lot of ways in which stuff can get lost in translation twixt the two heads. So I feel like this is you actually squaring yourself up and being all like, okay, well, this is where I am, right? Shoring up your foundations, ready for whatever comes in the Mercury retrograde, and let's not forget that Mars is also in pre-retrograde shadow. I can't remember when it goes retrograde, but it's going to be a thing. Because so much of this reading seems to be the interaction, the intersection between your acts, your words, and your feelings, and how they kind of clatter together to be something that you didn't expect. Now you have an opportunity to kind of put all of those things in the right place to give yourself a clearer run-up at whatever it is that Mercury will have in store for you as it's going retrograde, right? It's kind of clearing the ground, ready for something to maybe it's to get dumped onto it, right? What do I mean? I'll try and think of an example, right? So say you were going to get some aggregate dropped off, right? Because you're going to build some sort of path in your garden, or you're going to build a driveway or something like that. What you're not going to do is dump that on top of your compost pile, because you're not going to be able to access your compost pile, but also because as you start to try and take all of this aggregate or this gravel or whatever it is that you've got and place it where it needs to be, you're going to be dragging compost with it. So instead, what you would do is move the compost pile, put it somewhere, I don't know, closer to your vegetable garden where it's useful, and have a nice clear space for this gravel, for this aggregate to be dropped off, right? Then you're not going to be fogging the issue, you're not going to be clouding the issue. One medium is not going to get mixed up with another, and I do think that's where this moon thing has come in. So it's really, really interesting. So I'm going to the extended now. If you're not sick of the sound of my voice, you are very welcome to come join me over there. You can do that on Vimeo, or you can do that on Circle. I would be delighted to see you in either place. I haven't spoken about the Ten of Wands. I feel like the Ten of Wands is the relief. I just want to throw that in here, but we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the extended, right? Ten of Swords, Ten of Wands, relief, it's coming. If that's not your thing, that's absolutely fine. No shade at all. You do you. But this fog won't last forever. But please, if you take nothing else away from this reading, like, don't hide yourself away. Like, you need to come out from wherever you are. Now, be seen, be heard, be Gemini about everything. Because that feels really important for some reason. And I don't know why that is, but it is the thing. So know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.